Hey guys, it's your boy J Mecha here with a Penny Dreadful deck tech of Locket Storm, one of my favorite decks in this format right now. I might be doing a couple of these, but for now, this is kind of like my pet project here. The background of this deck is that basically when the new season started, we saw that Tendrils of Agony was reprinted, or rather introduced, and I just had to make it. Being such a proponent of Dragonstorm in the first season, I had to storm again, right? So it's not your typical storm deck, I would say. This deck takes more parallels from Vintage Masters Storm. If you ever played Vintage Masters Limited and you tried to storm, usually you had to brain freeze people, but it was a lot easier because they had Dark Ritual, uh, Deep Analysis, High Tide, Turnabout. You had a lot of ways to really make mana. But the real backbones of that deck for me were Frantic Search and Nightscape Familiar. And you have those here too. So we're just going to go over the deck and talk about it. And talk about the theory behind it and what you really need to storm. Honestly, what I learned from Vintage Masters is how to storm. You need four things. You need mana, card advantage, time, and you need a kill condition. Obviously, we have the kill condition. That's the easy part. Tendrils. We have two. We actually have two tendrils because at some point, sometimes you don't always storm off in the same turn, so you kind of need that second tendrils. Also, with the locket, every tendrils in your graveyard makes them cheaper. So sometimes I'll just discard the first one just to make the second one cheaper. The hardest part actually is the mana part. So we don't have any rituals. There's no high tide. There's no dark ritual. No cabal ritual. No moxes. Nothing like that. So we kind of have to get creative with the way we make mana, and the way we have to do that is mana reduction via Nightscape Familiar, which reduces all your blue spells by one for each one you have on the field, and Locket of Yesterdays, which says that you cast spells you cast cost one less for each card of the same name from the graveyard. So you have you're incentivized by dumping cards into your graveyard with cards like Frantic Search, Nagging Thoughts, and Forbidden Alchemy. So, and the more lockers you have in play, the cheaper your spells get that come from your graveyard. Frantic Search is pretty much the card that ties the whole deck together. It makes mana, gives you cards, lets you discard cards for the locket if you have one in play. But the most part is it makes mana and it's free, so it's just a free storm card. The last kind of mana producing card is Everflowing Chalice, which one can accelerate you early. In late game, you can just cast them for free. A trick I like to use is I'll when I'm kind of going off in the later games, I'll cast this for 0 and then repeal it and then recast it. So you're basically getting 3 storm for 1 blue mana. It's a really neat trick. For card drawing, we have a smattering of 2-drop drawing spells, Anticipate and Nagging Thoughts. They do different things. Anticipate will find you any card you need, whether it be some sort of, familiar locket or maybe just a frantic search. Nagging Thoughts, not as good as digging, but it does put cards in your graveyard, so we kind of need that. Also, you can kind of recast it off of frantic search, but that's not like as good as you think it is. But still, it's okay. Puther Depths, there's only 2 of them in this deck. You think you want more, but honestly, you don't hit as much as you'd like because you have 12 of these non-instant sorcery cards plus 18 lands. So you're only hitting about half the time. So you only have 2 there. Treasure Cruise, you're dumping all these cards in your graveyard anyway, and eventually this becomes a recall. So that's really good. Forbidden Alchemy is the last kind of card drawing. We already talked about Frantic Search, is amazing. But Forbidden Alchemy, uh, looks at 4, gets you 1. Can't give you anything. It's kind of like a better Puther Depths, but a little more expensive, and also puts cards in your graveyard. So we need it. Flashback sometimes happens too, so that's not to be uh, forgotten. The last part is about the utility slash time. Kind of just need time to do it. And honestly, the philosophy behind it is that if you're not dying immediately, then you don't need to kill them immediately. The deck can probably go off around, I would say, between turn 4 and 6, I would say, given the right situation of familiars, lockets, and whatever cards in your graveyard. Really, what you want is a mana reduction piece on the field, a frantic search, and a treasure cruise. And that's kind of what you need. And a couple cards, maybe like one or two cards, extra cards in your hand. So, with that being said, repeal does a lot. Like I said, it works with the chalice to help you storm, but it also just buys you time, bounces that one creature that's annoying you, that early creature, or bounces that one permanent that's just giving you trouble. Call to Mind is the last kind of card that is a late addition to the deck, but I found it very useful. A lot of times you'll call to mind back the Frantic Search because, like I said, Frantic Search is the one card that really makes this deck work. You're just looking for these basically while you're going off because you just need them. It's without them, it's just like you don't really have much going. And Call to Mind kind of acts as like the fifth and sixth Frantic Search because that's what you usually get back. You usually just get back the Frantic Search, especially when it costs one, two, or one. That's when it's money, because you're only working with about like 5 lands when you start going off, and when this costs one, it's amazing. Moving to the sideboard, it's a bit of a hodgepodge of random cards. The most curious card would be the Curious Homunculus, which make this preview a little bigger here for the Homunculus. At the first part, it kind of like adds mana. On the flip side, it actually reduces your cost. So, when a big problem cards that people bring from their sideboards is Scrabbling Claws, which will kind of eat your graveyard and just like annoy you. It doesn't hurt with your Locket plan. So sometimes uh, you kind of just need to beat them down. So, assuming that your graveyard isn't super messed up, when this thing flips, it's a house. You can just start chaining your spells. It doesn't even matter if your spells get eaten or not, because this thing's going to attack for 6 or 7 by like, the 5th turn, and that's really good. It's just like eating chunks of their life and making it so you don't have to storm a lot less. And sometimes you don't even need the storm. You can just kill them with this. I've definitely killed them with that. A typical cyber plan, what I'll do is actually I'll take out the chalices and I'll add these when I think they're going to bring in Scrabbling Claws, which is almost all the time. So honestly, I'll probably do it 90% of the time. Then game 3, if it goes to a game 3, assuming it won game 1, if I do, I might cyber them out and then keep in the removal just to like kind of switch it up. But really, this card is not to be trifled with. It's pretty amazing. Snapback, it's a free spell. It's a free blue spell. One of the few free blue spells we actually have. But it's really useful for just more removal, just getting rid of problem creatures, and the freeness is not to be overlooked either. Sometimes when you need to storm off, you just need a free spell. Wall of Kelp is a funny little answer to aggro decks. There's not really a lot of rush down aggro decks, but this can just kind of like annoy people. And kind of once you untap with it, you kind of make two. You can make like a blocker or two, and if they don't attack you for a turn, then you're making more blockers, and the more blockers you have, the better. It just like kind of buys you more time. Addle is for mostly counterspell decks. Counterspells are actually very hard to beat in this deck because you can never really play around. You can kind of play around in some of them if you know it, but it's better if you just kind of like get them out their hand. It also can steal like a Memoricide for when they're trying to Memoricide your tendrils. Which, by the way, Curious Homunculus is also very good against Memoricide if you think they're gonna bring that in, because then you have multiple kill conditions and tendrils and Curious Homunculus. So Addle can take care of things like those. If they have their own discard spells like Him, though on the draw, Him's gonna hit you no matter what. Still, Addle's, it's the best. You can't play Distress. Distress is double black, and double black is very hard to cast with your deck of only, like 15 blue sources and like only about, let me count here, 9 black sources. You really can't count on casting Distress. So Addle's the thing to go, the way to go. Last card is Coffin Purge. Every sideboard in Penny Dreadful needs to have some sort of graveyard removal. Coffin Purge gets a nod over Scrabbling Claws because 1, it's an instant. 2, you can flash it back and add Storm. That's just the main reason I'm playing it. So, with all that being said, we're gonna go into the matches. A quick note about the matches is that I kind of scraped all the matches from my stream, twitch.tv/jmecha. You can click the link in the description and follow me. So it's gonna sound a little weird. It's gonna sound like I'm having a weird, disjointed conversation with someone that's not there, because it's true. I'm talking to probably somebody or multiple people in Twitch chat. So I might not be talking about all my plays if you watch the videos, but for the most part, you're gonna get a sense of what's going on. I usually try to dictate all my plays in my stream anyway. So yeah, hope you enjoy, and let's get to the matches.